All right, episode 2 of the You're the Hero podcast, the VSC podcast. Now, I have a confession to make. First of all, is there a green light on that one?
Yes.
Yep, beautiful. You were meant to be number 1.
You
You were.
Someone snuck in.
Yeah, Blake, yesterday morning. So, you are guest number 2. Oh, we're getting interrupted already. Come on, bro, we start at 8:30. I'm not editing these either.
Classic.
Nah, that's right, yeah. All right, episode 2 of the You're the Hero podcast is Brendan Pratt. Welcome
G'day.
to the microphones. Now, the whole point of what we're trying to achieve with this podcast is that we're showcasing that everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has a different story. Everybody has a story to tell. So, I'm going to ask you some questions. It might be things that I already know, but the people out there may not know who you are, what you do, or anything if they're from a different class or time slot. So, Brendan, what do you do for a job? What is it that you are qualified to do, and that are the skills that pay the bills?
I'm a chef.
Yep.
By trade, but I've been cooking for 20 years and moved down to the southwest for a job at Bass Felix at a winery. I cooked there for 6 or 7 years, and then we opened a little business, and then moved from there to a group called the Parker Group, and now I'm a culinary director. So I just look after 6 or 7. We have 6 venues, 7 restaurants, and just oversee the different food offerings in the kitchen and the chefs. So yeah.
So when did you start training? Because from my experience, fitness is not really something that floats around the hospitality scene, but I would imagine that it's becoming a little bit more regular to see that happening. Am I wrong, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when did you start deciding to exercise a little bit more?
I think...
Or at all, if at all?
Yeah. I think coming back, I've always loved sport and always been involved in team sports.
Yep.
And then obviously as you get further along with your career, it gets a little harder to commit to playing team sports and ask for time off, etc. And it sort of started relying. It was my wife Courtney actually that got me into sort of training in a gym. Never really done that. And so yeah,
we have been mentioning where people trained too, so you can mention. I don't really mind.
Yeah, did a bit of F45 training.
Yeah.
And then sort of Courtney came here to VSC and couldn't shut up about it. And we'd had a few mates that were there, and I was sort of a bit intimidated, but soon was to know that there was nothing to be intimidated by. But yeah, it's probably been 3 or 4 years since I've been doing a little bit of fitness, and then now just sort of really getting into the consistency around it. But yeah, it's getting to be a more common thing within the industry, less of that kind of late night drinking atmosphere and more of the kind of look after your body a little bit. I guess there's more information out there available.
Yeah, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a pretty big mental health epidemic, isn't there, in the culinary world of...
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that there's a lot of... I mean, and rightfully so, right? Like the whole point is that you've got to understand food flavors. I remember when I was in hospitality, which is, we're talking 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, and for 3 or 4 years, it was like finish work, have staffies, which is like 11, 12 o'clock at night, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
If some wanker doesn't let someone come in at 11 o'clock and decide that they're gonna have a thing, and then you're back super early. Like I remember the chefs being back, like, you know, they finish at 11, 12 o'clock, and then they're back by 8, 9 o'clock the next day, prepping, doing stuff and things, and so I can see why. And then again, a lot of the downtime is drinking with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's like
eating on the run.
Eating on the run is like and they're like stuff around sort of like there's a big part that has a massive shift that's happened over the last sort of 5, 6, maybe 10 years. But like when I worked in London, 20 hours a day was pretty common, and it was like 6 days a week, 20 hours a day. You didn't really eat because you didn't want to be the guy that would take their staff meal because the other guys are still working. So you would I just want to eat, have a coffee, and at the end, it's like 2 a.m. Everyone wants to go for a drink, so you go for a drink, and then all of a sudden you got 45 minutes sleep or whatever, and then you're back to work again. So there was like no time for that. But also I think the biggest thing around it is that like your weekends are not weekends; they're the Wednesday, Thursdays, or Tuesday, Wednesdays, or whatever they may be. And so, like your friend group starts to change as you start to progress in your career. You start to change to have chefs as friends. You're drinking with like those chefs at night. You don't see your other mates, and so that becomes the norm. And then you like don't realize that it's not that healthy to finish work. Yeah, like you said, midnight, drink until 2, have something to eat, go to sleep, wake up, go back, do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, because your friend group now. So we met through friends that were training here, who then we met you at Ash's party, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, 2 or
Yeah.
3 years ago. And then you came here, not through that, but we knew who you were, and the friends that you have through that friend group that you are going on holidays with, who you spend a lot of time with and stuff like that, they all exercise now too, right? And they're all
Yeah.
chefs, winemakers, culinary experts. Like we're not, we're talking like award-winning winemakers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, very prominent chefs, and in your role, you're managing the culinary experience within 4 or 5 different restaurants, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
that also is going to be a lot more helpful, having the fact that now you can you might take a bottle of wine around to a friend's house, have something to eat, but then you're like, I'm going home now because I'm going to go to the gym in the morning. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, what are you doing that for? Yeah, it's like, yeah, cool, yeah, no, so am I, or so are we, or
Yeah.
no, you're right, we should probably get up and go to the gym tomorrow and stuff like that. So that's going to be a big shift too, right?
Big shift. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that like normalizing that, prioritizing your health is like, you don't have to feel embarrassed about the fact that, yeah, exactly, like you're going home a bit early, or you're not going to have a staff drink every night. You might only have it on one night a week or something like that. And it's like, I think the whole industry is moving towards supporting that side of life and like giving people the balance within their jobs. Like I know now it wouldn't be that common to work more than 45 to 50 hours a week. It does still happen, obviously, and people push harder, but it's that thing that it's like, it's the generic, or the generic role is no more than sort of 40 to 45 hours. And I think that's like allows people to, look after their body, prioritize fitness and health, and then also like still have a healthy work-life balance as well.
Has that started to push across to menus, or do people sort of start to understand, like, again, it's still sort of where you are cooking is going to depend on the menu more than like we could do this to, like has
Healthy side of things.
yeah, without unintentionally doing it, but without having to automatically fry everything. Do people think of different ways to do stuff, or does it not really push across the food, but they do consider that with portion sizes or anything? Has anything shifted like that, or not really, because the food experience, I mean, fitness is still a minority, right? Like it's not like everybody who comes into Pavilion's going to be all like, oh, can I get a half serve of some shit? I'm sure no one does that.
No, there's no half serve.
No.
But there is definitely that need to have a more balanced menu and have options there for people that are going to be conscious about that sort of thing.
Course. Oh yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
And
even gluten free and stuff like that. Yeah. I didn't even think of that for a
but
second.
I think like it's I guess it translates slightly, but probably not from the people writing the menus. I sort of just go for stuff that tastes really good. Yeah. But then in general, like that lends itself to like the product itself and cooking it well. You don't necessarily, like you said, just have to go to, well, I'll deep fry it and smother it in sauce because it's going to taste really good. Yeah, but and my, I guess, like daily decisions are now sort of starting to impact the way I view food and my menus and the stuff that we write across the group. So yeah, definitely influences it.
Is it the same in Perth as it is down here? Because you see both sides, right? Or or is it really like blanket? Like,
I think it's pretty similar food wise, but definitely like in terms of lifestyle.
Yep.
It's blanket difference down here than it is to Perth, and I think it's like it's a little sad to see sometimes, but it is like the nightlife in Perth. None of the venues that we have in Perth shut before, like all the kitchens are open till 10 o'clock. Whereas down here, you wouldn't really at 8:30, 9 o'clock. And it's that like the kitchen open till 10, and they clean down by 11, and they're out by 12, and they have a staff drink. So it's still impacting that like later finish side of things because it's the city, and that's Perth, let alone like the rest of the world. But Perth is definitely like still a bit blanket difference to down here. I think there's like my majority of chef friends I have in Perth wouldn't prioritize the fitness side of things, I guess, as much as, I mean, that's the generic statement, but for me and my mates that I have down here, most of them train one form or another. So.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that, like most things, right? Like you move here, you're like, actually, I need to get out of that rat race to come to here to have some kind of work-life balance, whether that's no longer having a 60-minute commute to now a 20-minute commute. I mean, how far is Vass Felix though? That's pretty half decent commute, but
But
you'd be a lot
it's
quicker
just
than
driving, isn't it? There's no traffic, and it's
No,
not
that's
the
right.
monotony. Yeah.
But So I mean, we all end up sort of here anyway, don't we, for that lifestyle choice? So I guess that's going to be the difference, and then making that change to actually do it is also the other side of that.
Well, yeah,
because the
you're
fitness
right.
would be the same in Perth. Like I remember when I was in Perth, you'd do exactly that. Like, man, I'm lucky. I'm so glad that the whole 3 a.m., 4 a.m. client thing didn't exist when I was a trainer. Like, no one did anything before 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And then, like, because we've been down here, I think it's our 9th year, maybe close to 10th year in Perth, in Busselton now. So before I left Perth was when they just started cranking out 24-hour gyms.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And then I remember just as I was leaving, some of my clients were like, hey, it'd be really beneficial if I trained at 5 a.m. And I was like,
No thanks.
what? I was like, what do you mean? And then, I mean, it's only been since the last 5 years that we've even done a 4:45 and some stupid hour like that. But yeah, I think you're right with that one. Like, you do live here for the lifestyle, so it's good to see that they're not trying to rat race it and then forget where they live.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do have a really good group of friends that know to do that too. I think that's pretty beneficial for you too.
Yeah,
I'd love to, it'd be interesting to see if there are other chefs who are doing that or still just keep to themselves in that regard. But hopefully not. And it is,
Hopefully not.
Hopefully it is a bit more blanket. So you were training, and the whole point of this is not to really go like, because we had Blake yesterday who was also from F45 who then came across, and so it's going to kind of look like both episodes are like, oh, you went to F45, you came here, but it's not really that. I think what's important to note is that you went into somewhere where, do your friends still train? No, you have no more friends there. Like, you have friends there, obviously, but not,
mates there, but not
not your closest friends. Yeah, because the ones that you went with that were there, they train elsewhere now. Hey?
Correct. Yeah.
So is Mel still with Summer at
No, I think he's just training up the road at Snap.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so he's just doing his own stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. So then you've got Max and Ash here. You've got Liz and Trav, who are that same group of friends. So what I was sort of getting at with that one, mostly for the people out there, is that it's not about going, oh, you went from there to come to here. It's more, what have you noticed is the difference between, obviously over there you were getting fit, right? But when you come here, what was the biggest shift that you've seen for yourself in the way you approach fitness, in the way that you attack things now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was is probably just my mobility and also consistency. I sort of gave it a shot and would go a couple of days, and I sort of thought that 2 days or 3 days was pretty good. And I think at that time it probably was for me. Like, that was a transition into training, into realizing the impact it's going to have on me physically but mentally as well, and was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then coming here, the first few times I think I moved in here, it was a big challenge for me in terms of like realizing that, I mean, I don't have a very good time. I'm not very good at not being good at something. And like, coming in here, it was like, oh shit, I don't even know how to hold anything above my head, or I can't squat properly, or I'm actually not that fit. And was like, oh, it's a big realization. And I think it was like, okay, and you just watch everyone, you sort of chat to in the mornings, and they're like, oh, sort of 4 or 5 times a week. Some people are 6 times a week, and you're like, oh shit, okay, that's actually like, that's consistency, not 2 times a week or something. And so it was just a big change for me. I just noticed my fitness, I mean, not in comparatively to when I started, has grown massively. And just from, I think the atmosphere here is like so super encouraging to actually come. You want to come and hang out with the people that are here, let alone train with them. So yeah, it's been a huge gain, a huge difference for me training.
Because what were you looking for from VSC when you came across? Were you looking for that next level, that next change, something to shake it up? Like, what were you looking for?
I think the challenge is what I was looking for. And I love that challenge of like something new, something you're not good at, and then starting to mold. And I think like I saw that it was something that it was never going to stop learning. It's a bit like cooking. Like 20 years I've been doing that. I'm still striving to find something to learn every day. You're still looking, still reading, still watching things that are like challenging you and making you think, oh, okay, that's a different way of doing something. That's a good way. Let's keep going. Let's look into that. Let's change the menu again. We're constantly learning. And so like, I think one of the same thing, just that like coming here and you realize that even if you set that little goal and then you hit that goal and then you look for the next one and then set that one, and yeah, it's just constant learning and constant challenges.
Because I think that's where you and I are very similar in that regard, right?
Yeah.
Like we've both been doing this shit for like way too long, but yet we still seem to feel like we're still not anywhere near the top of where we need to be, right? Like always learning, always trying to see the next thing, develop the next thing, see what else works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as real, like you said there, like, you learn pretty quick that you're not where you could be. But that's not failure. I think, that's not failing. It's not even being scared to fail. And I can imagine in cooking, like you can try something and it can fail miserably, but no one's really going to come down heavy on you as long as you learn from it, which is exactly like what fitness is, right? Like, it never hurts to be shit at something.
No.
It just hurts when you flat out just leave it there. You just, exactly. You're like, all right, well, it's not for me. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, and I think I've never really been like that. I've always been like, oh, if I'm not that good at that. Sometimes when I'm immediately good at something, it gets boring, and that doesn't normally happen very often. But like when you find something that you're like, oh, actually, I could be way better at that. And I know that if I just keep doing it, I'll get better at it. So this was a really good challenge. But it's like, I think that like the thing about cooking is it's that quick. Yes, you like constantly have short time pressures. So you're always like got lots of things to get done. Sometimes super quick, sometimes there's long sort of goals and projects that you work on. But a lot of the time it's like, you've got an immediate set of things to get done within the next half hour to 50 minutes, whatever. And when you achieve them, there's that like sense of achievement. And so like professionally, I've always been used to like a little reward from a sense of achievement of finishing something, ticking it off or crossing it off the thing. And I think the gym has been very similar to me doing that. You get to come here. It's something you can tick off when you leave that you've done, self-satisfying, but also like that little goal. Sometimes it takes you a little bit longer to get there than you thought, but sometimes it's a bit quicker and you can like tick that off and be like, shit, I did that.
Yeah, you're that guy that gamifies everything.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I get that too.
Lists,
100%.
lists and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and even simple tasks, you're like, you gamify it, like you try and find a different way to quickly do it the other way, which I could imagine that the success in cooking is actually to gamify the same task over and over and over, because
otherwise
until you're writing the menu, or even when it is your menu, I figure you've got to gamify it somehow, like always tweak it to make it better, always, like whether it's speed at the pass, whether it's bigger volumes of things being produced, like
with the same quality.
With the same quality. No one's chopping every single, like everything. I don't know if I assume everyone knows this, but when it comes to cooking, there's all the prep work done, right? Like
quite often, I'll get to work at I start really early, but even so, like at Bass Felix, service doesn't start till 12, and you do one service that starts at 12, and I'd get there at 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
and
because you've got to do so much prep work. Yeah.
And
because
someone would say to me, most people who don't understand would be like, "Oh, do you do breakfast?" And you're like, "No, it's not for service. Yeah, I've just got a lot to do to get to that point." And they're like, "Oh," and it's like, because I guess at your home, like you don't make things that take long that often, so it's like understanding the process. But yeah, it's always that gamifying, trying to like, how do we reduce that process but still keep the quality at the end of it? It's just challenges, set new challenges. Yeah.
Because you go to work before work to get work done before everyone else can ruin your day, right? Like, So I remember you telling me that the other week, because I do the same thing, right? Like anyone who follows me on social media knows I'm like, get up, do the stuff before anyone else can ruin your day.
Yeah.
Like, because as soon as everyone else steps into it, there is a 50-50 chance that someone is going to slow you down.
But you take the excuse out of it, right? So it's like you don't have an excuse then to be like, oh, I just didn't get that done because someone needed me to do something else or whatever. It's like, nah, I've got work to do, so, and that's on me. So, and I'd really like to come to the gym at 9 o'clock. Like I really enjoy coming at that time. And I get to train with my wife and see her a little bit more. And sometimes I see one of my daughters that are here or whatever. So it's like that time works for me. I'll get up and go to work at 4:30, crack out 4.5 hours of work. That's half my day done. Come here, train, and then I can go back and get a solid 5-6 hours in still. And it's sometimes another 10 hours, depending on what the day gives. But it's like, that's a really nice mental change. And I think it was like seeing the way that you do your things has like gave me a different way of looking at things. I was like, oh no, when I'm at work, and I can't leave. And I've always been like that 20 odd years. And then now it's just like, actually, no, you can. I guess the position has changed as well, but the mentality has changed around it. Like get in, get as much done as you can. And I sort of like flick that switch, and then it's like, okay, now I can relax a little bit.
Yeah, so have you always been like that, or you've sort of just picked that up a little bit more lately? Or
I
you
think
sort of,
that's
when you were
more-
prepping, you were like, okay, well, if I get in at 5, prep till 12, service is done by 4,
Yeah.
you know, that's an 11-hour day.
Then I can.
I think, yeah, Vas Felix was only lunchtime, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So be out by
which
5
is
or 6
almost,
at night.
which is also a luxury in the culinary world too,
Yeah,
right?
it is,
Like,
yeah.
to be like, we're lunch only. It's like, well, I get home by 4 or 5 o'clock, and you can kind of have some kind of normal life,
Yeah, correct.
not completely ruined by doing lunch and dinner service with a. I remember a couple of the guys used to have like 3-hour breaks, or which I think they do that a lot down here now. You know, kitchen's closed from 2 till 5, so
Yeah, exactly.
they're either prepping for 3 hours, which I don't think they are. I think they.
Well, now it's not so much. Yeah, I think
No.
back in the day it was like my apprenticeship was basically 8 o'clock in the morning until midnight, and you worked that 5 days a week, and that was just what you did. But if you left it, like, we probably could have had breaks, but it was this weird mentality of like, oh, I'm not going to be the one that goes on break because he's not going to go on break, and then I look like I'm lazy, so I'll just keep working.
Yeah, and the head chef will tell you you're a lazy fuck
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
and then that's right, and the sous chef will beat down on you, and then
Yeah. And you want to be like, you wanted to be the toughest in there and the hardest working and the whatever, and it was this like stupid game of like, yeah, I'm the hardest. No one's going to beat me. No one can take you down. Yeah, and then it was the burning and the like kicking and the swearing and all that sort of stuff that you like then got used to. And then you go away to London and it gets like 10 times worse. And I lived in London for 5 years and went to France, and then I came home and it was like, then I was the head chef, and then all of a sudden I was like doing the same thing. And it was like a pretty big wake up call one day. A guy just like, who was a good mate of mine, and he was a sous chef, and we thought we were like going to change the world. And 27 or whatever, first head chef gig, and was like, oh, I'm the best chef in. You think you're this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got a funny story about that, being a personal trainer too, but yeah.
And like, you think you're changing the world, and then he just like pulled me aside and was like, "Man, no one likes working with you. No one wants to listen to your shit. No one wants to put up with it, and they all want to work for you, but none of them want to work with you. They all want to learn, but fucking everyone thinks you're a dickhead." And it was like a pretty big like life changing moment where it was like, right, I'm the guy that I hated when I was an apprentice, and you're like, you got to change some things. And then it was just like a switch flicked, and I was like, right, it's got to change. And it was like a big movement. And then that's why, like, I think the biggest thing for me for the last 15 years has been, or 10 years has been, the culture within workplace. And I think then that relates to here, like everyone that will be watching this or understand the culture that's at VSC. And it's like a huge thing and a reason why we joined, and hear our mates talk about it. And then you're like, oh, well, that's obviously not as intimidating as it sounds. And then you get here and it's not, because yes, the movements might be intimidating, but no one else is judging you for trying. They're all got your back. And I think that's the same at work. It's like everyone is there and they're just trying, and so no one should be judging them. It should be just, you support them, and then they want to work harder and they want to work with you, and it becomes a really nice environment. You want to rock up to work every day and be there. Same with here. You want to rock up and train and be here. So yeah.
I think that's important, because it's funny that you should say all that stuff, because like I said earlier, like I worked in hospitality, but my personal training career originally was almost identically the same. Where like we were the ones that had, when I was teaching group fitness and when I was a personal trainer, or when I was a when I was a sales manager and all that stuff, we used to get the shit end of the stick, the crap. You were always like, the only reason that we are where we are is because we got the crap time slots. I remember being the guy who got the 7 a.m. This is, again, for the record, like 6 a.m. was a jet time slot. Anything 7 to 8 a.m., if you got those as your class time slot, you were getting 3 people. 10:30 a.m.s, 7 p.m.s, but this is the same sort of thing, right? Like you said, it's you at the start of your career, you're given this shit end of the stick, and if you can make it through, then you get to this side where you're like, all right, so your mate can pull you aside and say, hey, no one wants to work with you. They want to work for you, but not with you. And you're like, oh, fuck, all right. So, and the story I've got with that was, I remember I think I was 18, and I'd been doing I wasn't a personal trainer yet. I was just a group fitness instructor, but my whole life I was like, from the beginning, I was told I was good. Everyone was like, you're really good at this. You're really good at this. Anyway, I walked in to be a personal trainer, and I thought, I'm
really good at this.
I'm God's gift at this shit. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Anyways, I get pulled in by the guy who owns the personal training studio. He's like, you're late. You are too busy worrying about yourself. You're not paying attention to your clients. I'm just going to have to let you go. And I hope you start to learn how to actually do this correctly.
Shit.
And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, here's me thinking at 17, 18 years old that I'd already been doing this shit for 3 years and I'm already good at it. And I was like, fuck, actually, turns out you're not. So I get that. And I've had that throughout my whole career where I've always thought I'm the good at, like people tell me I'm good at what I do, but I'm like, that's great. But I'm not ready for that to be that's not the end of the story yet. It's not the end of that. It's not the end of this story yet.
Like, I appreciate it, and I'm thankful that you think that, but I'm still growing. I've still got places to go. Do want to get better.
And I think what happens now a lot is, like you said before, a lot of people walk into these sort of places and they're intimidated, they're worried, and they have those problems because we are, like, for some, no, actually not for any strange reason. Like, the people who train here are what we would call extraordinary. Like, you've picked up on, well, if I do the stuff early, then I get to do the stuff and the thing. And that's from hearing me say something stupid like, why are you not getting up before the kids wake up? And then, so actually he's got a point. If I want to spend more time with my kids, why don't I do it while they're awake? And I go do the shit that needs to be done while they're asleep.
Yeah.
And then if I do that, and then I can train at 9:15 with my wife, or I can do the school drop off, come train, then I can go be left alone for the next 10 hours because I've given to work, I've given to me, I've given to her, I've given to them. And because you're passionate, you like what you do, and it's not like your job's not your hobby and your hobby's not your job. And don't get me wrong, everyone, even though you love your job and stuff like that, it's like a marriage, it's unconditional. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not. You get to then tick those boxes guilt-free that you're actually able to enjoy yourself instead of being like, fuck, I got to get home early, spend more time with the kids, do all that sort of stuff. So I think when people think that we're intimidating, we are, but it's only because I think a lot of us have been through that ringer.
Yeah.
And I saw a quote the other day, which is going to be part of what we are, our social media over the next couple of days, is you're not scared to fail, you're scared of being seen failing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Like, they worry.
Definitely.
Yeah, they worry that just because my back squat might be 150 and yours is 80, that's failure. It's like, no, it's because Brendan can souffle, chiffonade, or something amazing. He's got his gifts and talents, and I've got 20 years of this, and you've got 20 years of that. And when I come to your house for a barbecue, I'm not bringing food because it's not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
No, I think that's cool. I think it's good to know that you've picked up on that, and it's shifted how you approach a lot of things too. Now, we don't have to wrap it up, but I think we should because we're going to have them knocking up on the door very shortly. So I don't really know what else. I had one more question and I can't remember what it is. No. So, yeah, that's it. I think thank you very much for today. Yeah, I think that was cool. That was really cool. Getting to sort of get your perspective and stuff like that. Do you have to head back to Perth today? No, you go to...
Yeah, we're going on holiday.
Port Douglas today.
Yeah, holidays at Savo. I think that's the other thing, just like balance, I've just learned that, like, I always felt guilty about taking breaks and taking a holiday, and, like, I hope that people, you watch it. I was just used to watch mates going on holiday and be like, oh, that'd be nice. And you're like, mate, let's do it then.
Awesome. Done. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you.